Hello, if you want to watch exclusive lemon content on What If Naruto, then go to my Boosty. The first link in the description here contains such hot stories for adults, such as What If Naruto was a daddy for Sarada, or Kushina and Mikoto vulgar Naruto mommies. Follow the link and enjoy. I'm waiting for you.
This story begins with a very happy Naruto, as he was finally able to beat Kiba in a duel in his favor. No one believed that the supposed last dead man had such ability to beat one of the best of the generation. On the one hand, Sakura saw something angry that Naruto had beaten her lover Kiba, Team 10. That if she knew that Naruto was a full-fledged prodigy, like the likes of Sekumo attack. On the one hand, Hino was with a face full of admiration, to know that his brother in everything but blood will start to show a little of his ability. Shikamaru has finally put a real smile on his face for many years, and this was because his friend took the victory in this preliminary. And finally, Choji was with admiring eyes, to know that his friend was already letting be someone he is not. And on the other hand, Team 8 had a joint smile on their face, knowing that their adoptive brother bar a friend would have had a victory, and a little recognition that I've always longed for since I was a kid. But what about Sasuke? Well, he was clenching his fists in rage when he found out that Naruto was more powerful than him or also had thoughts of Itachi. When he saw Naruto showing his ability, he saw his brother reflected in him. He felt so frustrated that Kakashi saw him and decided on a decision that would harm the fate of the world and his own life, at the cost of this hasty idea. What no one knew except Team 10 was that Naruto has been trained by the Kyuubi and by the late Shisui Uchiha since he was 4 years old. He met Kurama after some shinobi hired by Sakura's mother beat him up in an alley and left him in a puddle of his own vital fluid. Flashback scene. Naruto did not know where he was. Just a few moments ago, he was being beaten by a mob of shinobi and villagers. The truth is, he didn't know why they were mistreating him or doing such vile things against him. In all his short life, he was only branded as a demon and other things that he, at just 4 years of existence in this world, could not understand heaven. But what he didn't know was that he was finally going to understand a lot of things, more than anyone could bear. Where am I at? Naruto asks, a little confused. Follow my voice, said someone at the back of the place. Hey, can you tell me where we are? Naruto asks again. Well, boy, there he is. In your subconscious, said the voice very seriously, and you can tell me who you are. Naruto said very curious and somewhat serious. Well, I'm the Kyuubi, I'm the reason why people beat you up and are indifferent to you or ignore you, Kyuubi said very seriously. But if the 4th Hokage beat you 4 years ago, Naruto said very sure, hehe. Boy, no one can beat a bike to a clean battle. The only way to defeat us is to seal ourselves in humans or containers, Kyuubi said in historian mode. But because I said Naruto on the verge of tears, well, the truth is that your own father condemned you to live this hell, Kurama said, trying to mentally break Naruto. Wait, you're saying that my father is the 4th Hokage, Naruto said incredulously. If that's what I said, boy, Kyuubi said very serious, but I have a question, Naruto said very curious. And such a sudden question, Kyuubi said very seriously. Well, what I want to know is why didn't you leave when you were outside, Naruto asked with a bit of curiosity. Well, it's just that some bastard Sharingan put me into a genjutsu with his bastard eyes and forced me to attack this village, Kyuubi said with a bit of fury in his voice. Wait, you're saying that the one who provoked the attack was an Uchiha, Naruto said incredulously, but not just any Uchiha. Well, I have the idea who it was, but I'm not really sure, Kyuubi said very seriously. Wait, it says in the books that there is an Uchiha who has been a criminal since the creation of this village, Naruto said in professor mode. Yes boy, you might be right, maybe Uchiha Madara controlled me again. Well, I really felt that it wasn't Madara's signature, Kyuubi said in detective mode. Hey, do you want me to help you make that masked man pay for what he did to you? Naruto said very seriously. Ha 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 boy, if you want to keep your word, I will help you to become a very powerful ninja, Kyuubi said showing a sadistic smile. Will you train me? Naruto asked very excitedly. Yes boy, to tell the truth, you are more than you appear. I want to ask you a question, Kyuubi said. Very curious what your question would be, Naruto said. Well, I want to know if you understand everything in one try, I asked Kyuubi. Yes, that's right, I affirmed Naruto. Ha 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 boy, you inherited everything from your father as far as intellect is concerned, but you inherited from your mother the blood of the most powerful clan that has ever existed, Kyuubi clan said. Naruto said without understanding, boy. Your clan, the Uzumaki clan, is a direct descendant of my father, the sage of the 6 paths. They were mostly redheads with an explosive character, but very good for battles. They specialized in the art of swords and the art of sealing. They were the only clan to see us as someone else from his family, But unfortunately they could not protect us, since because of Madara Uchiha, we were condemned to make seals and be distributed throughout all the 5 great nations. Well, it's also Esirama the Shota and Okage's fault, Kyuubi said very angrily. I understand, then the wife of the cow of the first Okage was your first container. I asked Naruto very intrigued if puppy not anyone, she was your great-aunt Myth Uzumaki, the princess of Yuzu. She was the sister of your grandmother Saranaro Kyuubi with teacher voice, and do you know how I can activate the genes of my clan? I asked Naruto very seriously. I will take charge, said Kyuubi. End of the flashback scene. At this moment, he was on his way to the hospital to see if Kakashi would train him to improve his shortcomings in lightning-style elemental chakra control. When he got there, he saw his sensei and told him, Sensei was just looking for you, Naruto said very seriously. And tell me Naruto, why do you need me, he said that. Kakashi very selfless. Well, I just wanted to ask if you would train me to improve a flaw I have, Naruto said with a smile. Since I'm telling you this, Naruto, I won't train you. I'll take care of Sasuke this month, Kakashi said lazily. How does he even think of leaving me out? Bastard, your duty is to teach everyone. Your students don't focus on one, you're an asshole bastard. Bastard, you're just a person with favoritism problems, just because he's supposedly a genius. What a cheap excuse, I cry Naruto. With fury I will take care of Sasuke and Finn, Kakashi said in authoritarian mode. All right, stay with your student. Estrella, I can get stronger on my own, Naruto said very seriously. Kakashi tried to reply, but it was too late. Naruto came out with a face of few friends, and with a somewhat macabre smile. He quickly arrived at his private field, and started hitting training dummies, until his energy that at 0. Mental space. Kurama, why did you call me? Naruto asked very seriously. I didn't bring you here, puppy, it's them, Kurama said with a smile. Well, I introduce myself, I'm Kaneki Ken, and you are my reincarnation. And I'm Joker, I'm a criminal, he said with a smile on his painted face. Why did you choose me? Naruto asks. Well, we chose you because you are like us, mentally ill people, addicted to battle and rebellion. They said Kaneki and Joker in Koro, who would have thought, you guys discovered me too. I thank you for choosing me. And well, when we started the training he said, Naruto said very seriously, wait, I will change your parents' blood for mine. So that you become a ghoul, Kaneki said. It's okay, Naruto replied. So Kaneki made the genetic change, and left him his ghoul gene, plus 100% Uzumaki blood. After Kaneki Ken swapped Minato's blood for his own. Staying as it were, as his son began to train the physical, and with the help of the shadow clones. He began to try to handle efficiently the knives, and in some cases the double-edged razors, but also not. He forgot his chakra training with the help of his tenant, just like with Joker he learned about the way society was handled, and how people acted depending on the situation. On the other hand, Kakashi was thinking about everything that had to do with his sensei's son. He knew he was doing wrong to focus on just one, but they were council orders. He knew that the Sandaime had given him a warning to treat his team for equality, and now he knew that his fate, and the fate of the 5 great nations was written. What no one knew was that the 5 nations, minus what was left of the Senju clan, were the ones who caused the massacre of the Uzumaki clan. Flashback scene. Tower of Luzakage. Kusina, my child, said Asina very seriously. What's the matter, Ojichin? Kusina asked somewhat curiously. In a few days, all the big 5 nations are coming to annihilate all of us. Also, I want to tell you to take care of everyone, Asina said very sad. But because the nations want to attack us, Kusina said very curious. Well, my child, the reason is because for the rest of the world, we are a danger, something that they will never be able to control. We are so powerful that even the Senju Uchiha clan wouldn't give us any scratches, Asina said very seriously. Seriously, they consider us like that only because we are really good at all kinds of ninja weapon and everything that a normal civilian. Malachi, Kusina said in disbelief. That's right, they believe that we are a threat in the future, something that they will never reach if we can talk, but there is something so that we will all be dead the day the villages come. We have created a bomb to self-medicate, Asina said seriously, but let it happen with all the secrets of the clan. Kusina said with concern. Don't worry, my girl, they are already locked in the bunker under this tower, Asina said. But who will take everything out and give the clans revenge, said Kusina, a little confused. That will be your son, my girl. My great-grandson will be in charge of being the next patriarch and prince of the clan. When he knows the truth of what happened, he will come here and give the coup of authority in this world and bring peace. Being the only one to live with his allies, Asina finished. And what will happen to me? Kusina said. Well, you will go to the village of the leaf, so that you can be with your Aunt Bara Mito, grandmother, Asina said very seriously. It's okay. Sniff. Sniff grandpa, I will miss you, said Kasina through tears, and hugging her grandfather. End of the flashback scene. After a long day of physical training and with weapons, our protagonist went to his apartment to rest and meditate on everything Kurama told him about his clan. Flashback scene. Naruto was doing his physical exercise when suddenly Kurama took him to his mental space and said, "Puppy, I have to tell you about your mother's clan," Kurama said very seriously. "Tell me, Kurama, that you have to tell me about my clan," Naruto said with the same seriousness. "Well, as you know, your clan went to my that. For the 5 great nations. What I showed you was a memory of your mother before she came to this rotten village. Now you know that your clan self-murdered to prevail in you, my dear puppy. It's time for you to stop this false loyalty. You know that this village was the cause of all the wars, you know that they murdered Shisui. It's time, my dear puppy, that in the finals, you show your power as the prince of the whirlpools, and show to be the last psychopath ghoul. To honor Kaneki," Kurama said with a slutty smile. End of the flashback scene. On the other hand, in the Yuga clan, precisely in the main branch, there was a 10-year-old girl named Anabiruga. He was thinking about his secret love Uzumaki Naruto. She remembered the day she met the love of her life. Flashback scene. An 8-year-old Naruto was walking through the village parks in the company of Kurama Chibi. When suddenly he heard a barely audible sob. Quickly Naruto sped off and saw a pearl-eyed girl, as if they were a moon. And brown-haired was being teased by some recently graduated genin. "Look, if the little sister of Inada Yuga's uptight is here, let's annoy her. And maybe he'll give us his money," one of the slugs said. "Wait, what have I done to you, because you want to annoy me?" said Inabi a little bravely. "Just as you heard," said another of the trio of slugs. So the last of the trio hit Anab and threw her to the ground. They had an arrogant smile, the parents of the slugs. They said that women were useless, but for a redhead with gray tips, he did not like this, and went to where the slugs were and says to them, "What are you trio of idiots doing?" Naruto said seriously. "If you are the child that my mother told me not to come near," the leader said. "We are making that no." "It's up to you," said another of the slugs. So Naruto threw himself against the 3 slimes and placed himself in Kitsune fighting style. And thanks to his speed, he sent a couple of double kicks to try to make both of them fall. Then he went at his top speed and sat on top of the slug's leader and started giving him goal reinforced blows on chakra like that, leaving his face disfigured, and the others in a hook combo, broke his jaw and some ribs. And they came out of there like mommy's little girls. "You're fine?" Naruto said with some concern. Yes, I am, thank you for defending me," said Unabia somewhat blushing, "and tell me what your name is." Naruto asks curiously. "My name is Anabiruga, and I am the heiress of the clan." "And what's your name?" Anab said, blushing a little. "My name is Uzumaki." Naruto said he with a slutty smile. "Seriously, thank you for helping me, but I have to go," said Anab a little sad and grateful. "Don't worry. Another time we can play or train if that's the case," Naruto said. Thus they began a beautiful friendship, in which every Saturday they met at the land that was named after Naruto. They met either to chat, play or maybe train if that was the case. Since that day, a love as pure as water had been born, the psychopathic ghoul and the princess Yakugan were already destined to be together until the world ended. End of flashback scene. When Anab finished remembering, he went to the central courtyard of the clan and started practicing tree climbing, and all this was seen by his father. And so he never knew that his daughter knew all these exercises to grow and monitor your reserves constantly. But if he knew that his youngest daughter was secretly in love with Uzumaki Naruto, well, he found out because one day he chased her to find out what she did every Saturday. On the day he chased them, he saw his daughter with a real smile when standing next to Naruto. He knew that he was the son of Kasina. He let his daughter continue seeing him, but pretending that he never knew the secret that his daughter was keeping. After Yashi remembered his daughter's entire childhood with Naruto, he couldn't help but put a smile on her face. He knew that the boy had had a very hard life. Not to say to extremes of wanting to kill him, but this he did not know. He only believed that Naruto was just ignored and that sometimes they made indifference, but he never knew about the beatings he received. Sometimes he felt so weak not taking care of his best friend's son, and all because of the Okage and his bastard advice, just for him. That obstacle could not fulfill the promise to take care of him. Flashback scene. Hi Minato, Yashi said. I'm very much in line, Yashi, Minato said with a characteristic smile, for you to have called me Minato. Is it something urgent? Yashi asked with the same tone. Well, I'm here to tell you that Kushina chose you Tiriana as the godparents of my son Naruto. Well, in only part of Kushina, Minato said with an eye-rolling smile. It would be a great honor to be the godfather of your child. Tell Kushina thank you for taking us into account to be family, said Yashi, very happy something we don't see from he. Well, if I'm retiring, but I want you to promise me that if something happens to Kushina and me, you'll be there for him. To raise him and all that story, Minato said in a serious tone. Yes, I will, Yashi said with his tone, something that intrigues you and so. I question Minato if there is something that intrigues me, Yashi said in detective mode, and that would be. I questioned Minato very seriously. Well, who did you postulate as the parents of the boy for your part, said Yashi very seriously. Well, they are Jiraiya Sensei Tsunade-sama, Minato said with a wet smile. Thank you for clarifying my doubts, said Yashi very seriously, you are welcome. Well, I'm leaving you because my shadow clone I have at the office is going to dissipate, Minato said very seriously. Okay, goodbye my friend, said Yashi. To turn around and head over to take your workout. End of the flashback scene. When Yashi kept remembering this, from one moment to the next, he started to shed tears from all the frustration, anger and hatred that he had inside. What he didn't know was that his daughters and Nata and Anab saw their father with a very sad look to see him in such a sporty state, but the truth was that they did not know why their father was in such a state. So Inata took all the courage and approached her father and gave him a hug. When Yashi saw this, he could only hold on to Inata and keep venting everything he had, which he didn't realize. It was that Anab hugged him from behind, and this one says to him, "Father, what's wrong?" Anabi asked in a very reassuring voice. Sniff, sniff, the truth. I'm taking out everything I've kept in my whole life. All my mistakes and my false promises that I couldn't keep to my closest people, he said, and so on a little bit. Little recovered, but at the same time very serious. Father. I ask, and he kills with his barely audible voice, tell me. I ask, and so very surprised by the sudden question your daughter asked, Father. What I want to know is why you say you don't keep promises, he said, and kills a little. It would be nice, daughters. The truth is that their mother may they rest in peace. And I am Naruto's godparents, we are the godparents on Kushina's side, Naruto's mother said, and so very serious. Wait a minute. What? The sisters said in shock, if as you hear, daughters, Naruto-san is my godson, the truth is because of the council and the Okage. I couldn't adopt him, and I couldn't heal. To fulfill the promise I made to swear to Naruto's father. I really feel worse than scoria, Yashi said in a dejected way, father. And if I told you that Inabi couldn't continue, because her father said that you are in love with Naruto, right? Yashi sentenced with a smile on his face. As you found out, said Inabi red as a tomato, and on the edge of the day. May well 2 years ago, one Saturday I followed you, and I saw you with Naruto training chakra control. But I didn't last long since I saw you that you were truly happy, and well I acted as if nothing had happened all these 2 full years. Said Yashi. Very revealing. When Yashi finished telling what he did that day, Anna came to Guantoma's and passed out in her father's arms with her little tomato-like face. When Yashi remembered the last word, a shiver ran down his spine. As he remembered the beatings Kushina gave him when they were at the academy, just for making fun of his hair color. On the other hand, Irizen was meditating on how to keep Naruto in control, so that he won't desert or, worst cases, destroy the village. What no one knew was that Irizen himself, in the company of the elders, were the ones who initiated the extermination against the Uzumaki clan. Flashback scene. Irizen's beginnings as Okage. Well, Irizen, what are we going to do about the Uzumaki clan? Remember that Yamato died and Kushina came out very rebellious to us. Now our plans to dominate this clan and make it our ultimate weapons is getting out of hand. Danzo said with lust and fury in his voice. I understand, Danzo. Remember that there are also the Uchiha and in less cases the Yuga. Besides, I have to plan how to control them in the future, Irizen said in a power-hungry voice. Now let's finish with the Senju clan. While they are going to reinforce towards the Whirlpool country, what do we do? Omura said very seriously. Well, I think the most feasible thing is to send the Zambu de Danzo among the reinforcements and that they finish with everyone while they are on their way, so we break the alliance and we keep all the jutsus and the money. Said Irizen very seriously. Still I think you are crazy. You really think it will be so easy, said a hooded in the back of the room. Who are you? Can't you see I'm in a meeting? Said Irizen very seriously. Haha. You call this a stupid monkey meeting? You don't know who you're dealing with, the hooded man said very seriously. Who are you? I screamed Koru. Well, I'm Uzumaki Asina, but I'm just a hologram. I'm just here to tell you that the world has been condemned. We were the ones who kept the balance in the shinobi world, but for their lust and thirst for power. Very soon my descendant will fix all this, and you and this whole village of that are going to fuck. Goodbye, stupid. Asina finished with a gloomy smile. I want this to be done as quickly as possible, this said Irizen, very furious. End of the flashback scene. Day of the finals. Our protagonist was doing some push-ups and finishing his balanced breakfast that he got in the forest to get ready for his last day in this village and go to his homeland to revive the fear of the Uzumakis Bara ghoul in the shinobi world. In the next chapter, I will explain about the union of the Uzumakis with the Gur. At the stage of the exams, all the participants were in a row except for one, who was our protagonist, who was at the top of the wall, watching everything with a somewhat gloomy smile of eyes. Everyone was looking for Naruto with their eyes until already, if from the stands, they saw him on top of the wall, with his clothes and respective mask. Unintentionally, another memory came to his mind, and he remembered Kasina wearing a similar outfit. But in that case she was wearing a kind of red skirt, and with the same mask, but it was white with purple details. Unintentionally, the poor and so fainted from remembering those combined chains. With his other ability called Kagyun, but his daughter Inabi saw him with a drop of sweat, and when she saw Naruto, and that he winked at her, she turned a reddish color in her cheeks, and averted her gaze so as not to suffer a nosebleed. To see his love dressed in such a spectacular way. In the combat zone, come Sasuke Uchiha and Naruto Uzumaki Ken to the combat room. Sasuke Uchiha versus Naruto Ken Uzumaki. Please report to the arena, Genma said in an authoritative voice. So Sasuke stood in the arena with an arrogant smile, waiting for his opponent. Next to him was Kakashi reading his book with a disinterested look. She chickened out twice. She's a babe for not coming to face the village elite, Sasuke said with his arrogant tone. Naruto, Ken, come to the arena, Genma said. Here I am, Naruto said, coming out of the black smoke and walking with the rhythm of the song too. You're Naruto Ken, Genma said incredulously. Yes, I'm Naruto Ken Uzumaki. Please, Proctor, start this massacre that I will enjoy as if it were my birthday, Naruto said with a grim smile. The fight began with a Sasuke imitating Rogel's speed to try to break Naruto's defense in several parts, but it was impossible for him. Everyone in the stands saw this as if it were a perfect defense, but it recovered already if he knew that the massacre was already coming. A death was approaching, that for his whole family would be a feast. What was Gei Asuma? They knew that the Uchiha already. He was lost. Gei knew that that style of taijutsu belonged to Kasina Uzumaki, to her ex-sensei. While Naruto kept dodging punches with great ease, and this one says, well, I want to know if this is all you have, Naruto said very seriously. Shut up, Sasuke said very angrily. Hey, well, you asked for it, Naruto said very happily. So Naruto launched into blows with wind chakra included. In all the stands could be heard like a piercing breeze. Sasuke activated his Sharingan to try to keep up with Naruto, but it wasn't even working. Naruto kept throwing punches all over Lucia's body. Everyone was very terrified of what was happening. But for Irizen this did not suit him. Already the boy was out of control, he was already a fleeing mass, and a lost weapon. The fight continued with Lucia's attempts to break the defense, but nothing, full of hatred towards Naruto. He threw himself with a Chidori in his hands to try to finish him, but it was stupid, since Naruto took those rays as if it were his own food. He quickly activated his eye. Goli gave a grim smile through his eye. I quickly take out 2 diamond chains and 2 of his 4 shits and throw them towards Sasuke with great speed. I try to dodge them, but the chains took him by the legs and they unconsciously started crashing. I hit him on the floor several times. He did this several times until he hurt a bone of the emo and the chains let him go. Then with the shits, he began to pierce the legs of the emo to weaken him more, but then he made this movement. The emo got up dizzy, but a Naruto waited for him from behind and did this. After that, Naruto saved his shit because Kurama told him that it was not worth using it against such a weak and boastful opponent. Naruto sat down and waited for the emo to get up and sat in the lotus position. Gemma knew that this fight was to certain death, since the Okage let it continue, since it was requested by the Kasuke. About 2 minutes later, the emo got up very disoriented and not knowing what was happening, and Naruto arrives with this awesomeness. After that, the emo started bleeding heavily from the left side of the head and stood up with the bastard seal at its maximum splendor. Naruto, on the other hand, with the help of 2 shadow clones, set about collecting natural energy to enter the wise mode of the kitsunes. Meanwhile, he sent 2 reinforced clones to distract the emo long enough to have the senjutsu ready. The clones went at full speed to try to finish off the emo, so they continued for a few minutes, in which the clones dodged the emo's blows very easily, and it was getting frustrated. In the stands, everyone was looking very surprised by what just happened. The villagers and civilians were angry and shouting things at Naruto for hurting their princess. On the other hand, the Hokage was furious. I didn't think that this fight was going to reach these extremes. I knew that everything from this moment went to hell. At his side, Orochimaru was terrified by the power that Naruto possessed, since he saw that he knew how to neutralize Lucia from the very beginning. She remembered when he stood up to her in the forest. She quickly drew a conclusion that was 100% true. He was holding back. Now she knew that if she messed with him, her life would be over in a second. She knew that the boy was powerful. She knew where he came from. She knew that the boy was destined to make the revolution. She realized that his potential, it would be unlimited. So much thinking about it sent a shiver down his spine. When Naruto finished preparing his Sage Mode, his eye is placed with the pupil torn, for blacktails came out, and claws on his hands to everyone. Well, the villagers and civilians were terrified, because seriously, if he looked like a fox. He quickly got on all fours, and his appearance was like this. When he got into that position, he started running on top of the concrete of the stadium to try to trick Lemu, and give him the final blow, and start the torture. This lasted for a few seconds, in which he left Sasuke dizzy, and began with his claws to Intonato tear some of his skin, and leave serious internal wounds, and start the torture. When I finish giving him the blows, I take out a roll, and take it out, and take from it a toolkit for specific torture. In the mental space, Kurama watched with great fascination everything that her puppy was about to do when she saw him with the wise mode. She saw that he looked like her full-fledged son. The beginning of torture and death. Quickly Naruto sat down an unrecognizable Sasuke and began to place perfect music for the occasion. So Naruto began to place senbon on the arms and part of the abdomen to try to paralyze him. Then with the rhythm of the song, he took out some tweezers and started playing with them, passing them between his fingers, and stuck them all over his leg. Sasuke let out a cry of pain that everyone was terrified to hear. Then he summoned a medical kitsune and told him to treat the most serious wounds so that he could continue with the torture. Everyone saw Naruto with a lot of fear, except the Yoruga family. On the one hand, Yasi showed a genuine smile. Anab was very red at the sight of her love, covered in blood, and Jimata was cheering for him to give a slow and painful death to the tone-sensitive emo with tendencies of being his older brother's Luke. So Naruto stuck 3 toes in his toes for him to give another heartbreaking scream. Then he summoned the chains again and stuck them on his shoulders and abdomen, thus canceling out the pain of the senbon. But he gave another heart-rending scream when he felt the flesh of his body being pierced. Then he summoned Kurama in a considerable size. Considerable. Everyone saw Kyuubi with too much terror. All the memories from years ago came back to his head. When they wanted to throw things, they couldn't, as Naruto summoned an impenetrable barrier. Everyone saw how Kurama punched Sasuke all over the chest and knocked him to the ground and started hitting him with his tails to give him more pain. Then Naruto summoned a clone turned into Itachi Uchiha, and this one with the voice of Itachi said, "Hello silly and dwarf little brother. You know from the moment you were born, I was not happy to have you in my arms. The truth is you lack hatred, I lack being more hardened, but I see that I was wrong to take you away. Alive, a little fool," that's what the clone said, ending with a mocking smile. Sasuke hearing this gave another heartbreaking scream to know that he was just scum. Kakashi knew it from the beginning. The decision he made has already begun to affect the shinobi world. Leaving that aside, Naruto finally tells him this. "I wish they would torture you in Makai itself, but worse than what I did to you today. Say goodbye to this world, Sasuke." And so I beheaded. When he finished beheading, the whole stadium was shocked to learn that they had lost the most promising asset of the village. But they saw horror as Naruto cremated Sasuke's body and crushed his eyes. Quickly the proctor said, "The winner Naruto." Kanazumaki said Genma with a trembling voice. When they said the winner's name, the Yuga family applauded the boy. Everyone looked at the Yuga family with disbelief as they congratulated the murderer of their Uchiha. On the other hand, Orochimaru was terrified with what had just happened. He was definitely going to cancel the invasion and let this go on and then tell the ones in the arena that his hunt was dead. Next to him Sarutobi was terrified now if talk has gone to hell. The first thing he thought was that the boy knew his true origin. His friends, the elders of the council, were not going to like this at all. Knowing that his future weapon was already out of control. The next struggle. Aburame Shino and Fugaku no Kankuro, please come down to the arena, Genma announced to lighten the mood. They liked the show, Naruto said, heading towards the stands. Because you killed him, Kakashi said in a shaky voice, just revenge. This braggart bastard's clan was the one that killed my parents the day I was born. You know, the one who summoned the Kyuubi on October 10th 12 years ago was an Uchiha. They didn't know. You guys are very naive. My mother, the previous holder of the Kyuubi, was attacked by the council, and that Uchiha, haha. Since I see their faces, they deduced it, right? If I am the son of your beloved Yondaime, as I like to see their surprised faces, it is the best thing I have ever seen. But I have another task left before I leave this rotten village. I claim my inheritance from the Uzumaki clan. Jutsus, Fuinjutsu, barriers, territories, and all the land that was in the name of my Aunt Bara Mito, grandmother. Besides that, all the businesses and what was on the land has been completely destroyed. In addition, I demand the execution of Counselor Danzo Shimura and the entire cabinet of the third cage, my clan. I will give to you 24 hours for this. If they don't, this village will be destroyed by an Uzumaki and his Vihulu. Ended Naruto with a psycho smile. The history of the ghouls and the Uzumaki is from the time of the Sage of the Six Paths. It is said that an interdimensional rift swallowed a ghoul named Kanekaken. He knew everything. Everything about this world. He unknowingly, his closest family accompanied him in this. They met the sage, and he told them his story. Thus the years passed, in which Kaneki married his girlfriend Tuka, and other daughters of the youngest son of the Sage of the Six Paths. But his sons inherited only the Jengul and the blood. Uzumaki 100%, so the years passed in which they went to an island to live in peace. After Kaneki and his whole family died, Kaneki's eldest son, so not Uzumaki-kan, took the leadership of the Uzumaki clan. He had 2 children in his whole life. His eldest son was named Gen, and his daughter was named Tuka after his mother. Then his daughter had his daughter Kasina, and that's how this strange union ended, and that's how everything we know went on. Shino Aburame and Fugaku no Kankuro, please come down to the arena, Genma said in a serious voice. So the 2 opponents went down to the arena. Shino was going with a neutral look. On the other hand, Kankuro was going with a mocking smile on his face, thinking that he could beat the heir of the Aburame clan relatively easily. When they arrived at the arena, the 2 of them looked very analytical. On the part of Shino, he was trying to put together a strategy to neutralize the puppets, and in some case reinforced his insects to try to neutralize the poison that his rival had. Kankuro, as he is a shinobi who uses puppets, he planned a simple strategy, and it was to hide in the puppet, so that he, through the puppet in which it is hidden, and without any problem of attack, and try to neutralize the insects either through poisonous gas or a paralyzing poison. So the fight started with the 2 of them stepping back a little to try to make their strategy. Shino, knowing that he was not going to win this way, decided to go in front, but it was a decoy. Since the Shino who was making the attempt to go to taijutsu was a simple clone of insects, Kankuro did not notice and began to control the puppet to defend himself and try to neutralize it. So the Shino clone launched into simple academic taijutsu to try to break Kankuro's defense. When he gave a chakra-reinforced kick, he felt a sound like a crackling. That's when he took into account that she was a puppet by the time her bread was coming out perfectly. Kankuro thought that his plan was still working, but he fell into the trap. Quickly, Shino sent a few insects towards the bandaged puppet to try to drain Kankuro's chakra. Quickly, Shino stepped back to try puppet. Walk some insects underground and damage the puppet more and be immune to the poison through the distance they had. Kankuro knew that the battle was already lost. His strategy was brutally crushed. It was also very strange to him that his father had not started the invasion, knowing that he already had the battle against. He comes out of his puppet and says, "And Jabip," Kankuro said, raising his hand, and with some contained fury. Since Fugaku no Kankuro has surrendered, the winner of the second battle of the Chunin exam finals is Aburame Shino. Genma said very seriously. Everyone in the stands was fine, tittering and giving applause, implying that the fight was entertaining, and of course a member of the village won. Note: Shikamaru's fight is for me simply a work of art, so I won't write it. With Naruto, this one with several clones started jumping all the banks to try to get there. Taking the money of his father, mother and his clan, he also sealed all the houses, buildings, forests and enclosures that were on the land of his clan with rolls. He also put explosive seals all over the Sarutobi compound, plus a clone took the team with Omaru to Nami, as the guys were super loyal to Naruto. And for the world, they would not leave their sensei alone. He also took the Ishiraku, as they were loyal to the Uzumaki clan. It is said that Toiki's grandfather was a cook for the royal family of the Uzumakis, and they treated the Ishiraku family very well. When the clan self-murdered Toiki's grandfather, and his family came to La Jolla to try to set up a ramen stand and try to progress in this corrupt village. In addition, Naruto went to the root bases to try to massacre Danzo's old man and the other two advisors, and at least try to restore honor to the clan, even if it's a little with this revenge. At the root base, there were the three old Enels chatting about how to try to make a civil war and try to kidnap Yuga clan members, so they could experiment with them. So they lasted for a few minutes, but they were surprised by the silence that made the place. They quickly made their way to the entire center of the base. When they arrived at the center of the base, they found everything full of blood, and also, as the Ambus were decapitated, or without arms or without legs, Danzo was irate. His entire organization was already at zeros. But he realized that he saw shadow with 4 things behind his back. Besides that, they were levitating 9 golden chains. "Hello, one-eyed old man, did you like the surprise that I prepared for you with sweat and hard work?" Naruto said with a macabre smile on his face. "You demon bastard, you will pay for what you have done. Now all my plans have gone to pot," Danzo said angrily. I think your life and that of the other 2 veg stories ends today. Well, besides the fact that I'm coming to kill you, because you were the one to blame for my master Shisui committing suicide. And that he couldn't tell the clan that he was being used as a scapegoat, today July 26th. You will pay for everything you did in your disgusting known. So Danzo uncovered his bandaged arm, but when he saw that there was nothing there, he became very angry. "What did you do to me?" Danzo said very angrily. "It was all an endless genjutsu. Haha, you spent all the sharing in trying to free yourself. You seriously couldn't notice. You've fallen so low," Naruto said, showing his shit to the light. So Naruto stuck 2 of his shits to his legs and made the old man scream in pain. Then he took the missing Sharingan and put it in a roll along with a container. So he started to stick the shit in Danzo more. The same thing happened with the 2 clones, who had unintentionally beheaded the other veg stories, trying to get the eyes out of the old ones, but without wanting to behead them. They didn't stick his head like if it were mud. So for a few minutes he continued with the one-eyed old man. He put some bones in his missing arm. Then he added lightning chakra to some tiptoes that he stuck in all the ribs, thus giving Danzo an electroshock. Then he took Danzo's head and started giving him reinforced blows. And when he walked away, he took out 3 kanas and started spanking him, and also laughing in a very psychopathic way. For 2 minutes, he continued with the same game, and then he said this to her. "Hasta la vista, man, you?" Naruto said very cynically. So Naruto buried the katana all over his heart, and left it there so that his complete work of art would remain. After finishing with the 3 advisors of Sandaime himself, Naruto began to investigate the entire base, and try to find documents that would serve him to have an evidence, to unite the useless old man of the Sandaime, and finally return the village to chaos, and that a war would be set up, in which he would not be involved firsthand. I was also looking for that to see if it was true about the rumors that they planned the banishment of Orochimaru, and to know the truth why the Third War had ended in a very strange way. Everyone thinks that the Third War ended because of a peace treaty that the Sandaime sent to Old Onoki, to try to end the war in a peaceful way, but that was a complete lie. The reality about the end of the Third War was that the Old Onoki had already run out of more than 70% of his shinobi branch. Besides that, he didn't want problems with Kasina Uzumaki, since she was enough to destroy his village, that he did it out of fear. The reality was that this war was ended by Old Onoki's fears of having to face an Uzumaki for the 2nd time in his long life. The same happened with Kumo, when he and his brother Killer Bee had arrived at the village. They had told their father what happened while they were on their mission. His story was that they met Konoha's own Yellow Flash, who had challenged him to a fight in which he came out the loser. While Sandaime Reikikage himself, one of the best cages in the shinobi world, was listening to his children. He knew that they should be neutral with this. At the same time, he knew that Kiri was trying to decimate his forces through his Hinchiriki Yagura, who was a candidate to be the Yondaime Mizukage. He knew that if they kept poking their noses where they shouldn't, their village would go to hell itself. And to that they had to add the presence of Kasina Uzumaki, who murdered her Nibi Hinchiriki in the middle of the war. That's why they They decided to close borders and retreat by sending a shinobi to the boundaries with a role for Kasina Uzumaki. Instead, in Kiri, he was putting together strategies to be able to end a conflict with Suna. Besides that, the Sandaime Mizukage was planning to end his life because of his old age and pass the command to his adopted son. Yagura, in addition to not wanting problems within Uzumaki, who had an impressive thirst for revenge. That's why they also sent him a treaty with 30 billion rivers to leave them to Kitos and in peace. For Irizen to see that 3 nations surrendered for Namikaze Minato and Kasina Uzumaki, it was not convenient for him, one of being the last of his clan, and the other with a thirst for revenge towards the 5 nations. It was something he did not want as a surrender. If it hadn't been for Mato Dai and his sacrifice at the end. With 4 of the 7 mist swordsmen, Konoha wouldn't have survived the war if it hadn't been for these 3 shinobi, 2 prodigies. And one who was the genius of hard work. The war had never had an end. And now with the heir, it was a totally different thing. He just wanted to see the big 5 burn. Nations for trying to attack his clan and being fools by not knowing how to differentiate between a scroll or its content. I knew that the last thing left for our protagonist were the Yuga and his cousins Karen and Teiuya, who were with Orochimaru for safety in this fic. Orochimaru did not experiment with Teiuya and Karen, knowing that if Naruto found out, he would kill him. At the same time, Kurama told him that there were also his brothers, the other 8 Viju, who were going to accompany him on this adventure. Also, while checking the root base, he found a document in which was the plan of the day of his birth. I knew that the masked man did not come in as if it was an easy thing. He did it was because the whole old monkey's cabinet had it planned. He also found another document where the plan to assassinate Uchiha Kagami was. But this plan was devised by the 2 Veggites and Irizen. It seemed very strange to Naruto that the one-eyed old man was not in this plan when he started looking in the drawers. Jones from Danzo's desk found a letter written in the War Hawk's own handwriting. Shimura Danzu's letter to Uchiha Shisui. Shisui, if you are reading this letter, it means that you survived the jump in the Kanaka River. This letter contains the truth about the death of Ant Flight Kagami. The truth is that Irizen and his 2 advisors, before the start of the 3rd war, they attacked him to have the eternal Menyekyo Sharingan that he carried. If out of suspicion, everyone thinks to remove your eye, but it's not like that. I know I've made a lot of mistakes with Kagami and with you, but that's the whole truth. Postscript: Kagami died in the Kanabi Bridge mission to try to decimate all Iwa, but before he arrived, the Irizen ambush killed him and took his eyes. I'm sorry. He says goodbye. Shimura danced. The dark shinobi of the Leaf Village. When Naruto finished reading that letter, he changed a bit about Danzo's perspective, but not completely. Since he was the one who told the masked man about his mother's delivery and the day of her birth. When he left the base, with the ram hand sign, the base exploded with the corpses included. He was also able to rescue some brothers, who had as their names I and his brother Shin, the only ones that Danzo could not remove the emotions completely. Naruto quickly summoned a shadow clone, and with the Irishin no Jutsu transported them to Nami no Kuni to wait for him there, and take his way to Yuzu. In the Okage Tower, I was Irizen in meditation position to know that Naruto killed his advisors because of Tenzo's report that saw the whole massacre. He also learned through the crystal ball that Naruto found the letter that was addressed to Shisui. His plans were plummeting, but without knowing it, his village was going to spend a long time as the economic weakest. Well, I told you 30 years ago, old monkey, your village is on the road to perdition, Asina's hologram said with a mocking smile. Shut up, really shut up, Irizen said with desperation in his voice. Insert psycho laugh, I won't shut up until you see your body in 1,000 little pieces, Asina said in a mocking tone. When Asina's hologram disappeared again, Irizen started whipping his pipe against the desk, so he could release the stress that the previous patriarch of the Uzumaki clan made him cause. At the same time, the Ambus who were with Irizen in the office felt that death was coming to them to see the previous patriarch of the best clan, and the most powerful one that has ever existed, was to see his sentence. They knew about the whole history of the Uzumaki clan from the books that were in the An base, and they also knew that the child they mistreated was the heir of this mythical clan, with his thoughts and his feeling of. Out of fear, they knew that their pathetic lives were already written to be sent to the Makai. And Ruzen was very nervous to know that 100% of his plans were already scrapped. Taking the Yuga clan and subjugating them was a resounding failure, as Naruto took the entire clan to a place that even his 2 dogs did not fail. Lapdogs might find them. Another plan that went to hell was to submit Sasuke Uchiha as his main lapdog. He knew that the boy, as long as they gave him power, would make loyal. His plan was to turn him into Chunin and give him a personal training and turn him into his weapon to conquer the shinobi world. But thanks to our protagonist, he damaged his master plan and left him on the verge of plans B to subdue people and turn them into weapons for his conquest, but again he failed. Now if his end as the worst Kage and the vilest person who has existed in this generation was already written. And that was death in a very vile and strange way. With Naruto, our protagonist was in the grounds that once belonged to the first Kage. He was going through the compounds in Ju in search of some scrolls that belonged to his aunt Bara Mito grandmother, in which there were some seals to block the chakra network and some torture kits. He also found an envelope that was addressed to his mother. Attracted by curiosity, Naruto took the envelope, opened it, and from it he took out an already a little worn letter, and this contained the following words. Letter to my dear Kasina by Mito Uzumaki. Dear, if you are reading this letter, it means that you have managed to return the honor of the clan a little. I am writing this letter to tell you to be careful with the Ukiyas and all the nations. They have been planning the conquest of the shinobi world. I hope that you and your family can solve this problem and return the peace that my great-great-grandfather longed for so much. Igoromo. He says goodbye. Uzumaki Kenmito. When Naruto finished reading the letter, he had an expression of amazement, knowing that his great-aunt Bara predicted the future, and knowing that he always had precautions about what was going to happen. He also investigated the mansion and found a very similar suit to that of his mother when he goes into ghoul mode. Now he did know that the family had this powerful lineage in his royal blood. However, for Kurama to see that suit again, a shiver ran down his spine. From experience, he saw all the massacres that his first Hinshiriki did when he was in ghoul mode. All that blood and joints separated from the bodies was a pleasant experience, but at the same time it was very traumatic. Naruto continued to inspect the mansion to continue finding documents in which the truth about the death of the first Kage and Tobirama himself is expressed. I knew that they did not die in a very easy way. I knew that there was something hidden through their deaths. Accurate information was missing. Our protagonist knew who it was who deleted the valuable information about these two events, and it was Sarutobi's own useless old man. So Naruto, wanting torture, went to the old man's office with 2 torture kits. Physical torture, and some seals for the total chakra blockage, and mental torture. Everyone saw it with pure fear. And they didn't dare to take a step because if they did, they didn't know what it would do to them. When he arrived at the Okage Tower, he saw some ambas talking to each other. He could also hear a conversation between the clan leaders in a room. The aloof one, she knew that this meeting was something that those simple ninjas were trying to plan something against her. Without paying attention to that, he continued on his way and could see 2 figures heading towards the useless old man's office. They were Jiraiya and Tsunade with the face of few friends. When Naruto saw this, a cynical smile formed on his face and slowly walked towards the door, so that he could listen to the conversation between these 3. In the office, there was an Irizen sitting on the sofa that had his sour office in the company of his 2 students Jiraiya and Tsunade, who saw him with a face of few friends. And Ruzan, when he saw the expressions on his students' faces, knew that they had learned the truth and wanted answers. He was planning to lie so he could get his students off his back, but he knew that wasn't going to work. Another one she had was to be her second self, which was to be a helpful and kind person, but she knew that with his students it was not going to have an effect either. Now he was on the tightrope. Tsunade, Jiraiya, who brings them back to the village, Irizen asked calmly. We want to know where Naruto is, and we also want to know how his life has been for these 12 years, Jiraiya and Tsunade said in chorus. And when Ruzan heard the words of his students, he felt a lump in his throat. The words were not coming out. He was sweating from the nervousness that he had been carrying since the hologram of Asino Uzumaki appeared for the second time. Also seeing the angry and hateful looks from Jiraiya and Tsunade gave him a check in this simple conversation of only 2 sentences. So Naruto walked through the door with a cynical smile on his face and staring at Irizen, on the other hand Jiraiya and Tsunade. When they saw Naruto enter, they knew once and for all that he was their godson. I knew that just one sorry was not enough. They also saw that he was bringing 2 roles that he had. The cases of physical torture and mental torture. They quickly deduced that this was in courtesy to their sensei. Tsunade, when she saw the scrolls in an instant, knew that those scrolls were from her grandmother Mito. From such an impression, she came up to Naruto and said, "Hi, I'm Tsunade Senju. I'm the granddaughter of your Aunt Baramito, grandmother, and I'm also your godmother," she said with a smile directed at our Pelabi color. "Hi, I already know that, besides that you didn't abandon me, but believed because of your stupid sensei's lies that I was dead. So be calm," Naruto said with a smile. The beginning of torture. Quickly Naruto, through a flash of speed, delivered a blow to the old man's entire abdomen that made him writhe in pain for a few seconds. So Naruto placed a chair, picked up Irizen, and sat him down tightly, firm his cradle holder, and took out some ropes that he blocked. Chakra circulation through the body, and I start to give him a combo of blows all over the face. After that, I take some tweezers out of his physical torture roll, and I put a paralytic on them. And I stick the tweezers all over his nose to try to break it. Then I took out a rope full of needles and began to give him several lashes on the legs of the old monkey. Then placed a seal on his head, in which he showed all the annihilation of the Sarutobi clan, and out of it came Naruto beheading some members, be they civilians or shinobi, and Ruzen gave a heart-rending scream as he felt the paralyzer in his body. And saw the illusion repeatedly, then summoned a kits. He was a torturer, and he threw a small fireball all over the thigh of his right leg to give more pain to those wounds. So Naruto put on some gloves that had spikes and began to give him another combo of blows, adding that the old useless man's skin. And he was screaming in pain. So he took out some spikes and stuck them in his feet with great force and made him take out another grunt of pain. Then he pulled out a spiked bat and began to give him several blows all over the chest. Irizen's screams were heartbreaking. Then he took out some kendo sticks and with the help of a clone, they began to whip Irizen for 3 minutes until they broke. Then he launched a water bullet that hit the old man's chest, and then launched a fire bullet and made him burn up in pain and make more heart-rending screams. Then he picked him up and with his diamond chains began to whip Irizen in a very destructive way. And finally she sat him down and made him stick spikes and pins all over the back of his body, thus giving him another scream. Heartbreaking. "I wish you'd rot," Naruto said laughing maniacally. "Well done, my dear grandson. That was an excellent torture. You fill me with pride," said the hologram of Asuna staring at Naruto. "Asuna Oyi-sama, it's really you?" Naruto asked incredulously. "If it's me, my dear grandson, I liked the show, you are a worthy leader and a worthy ghoul. I have to go now, but let me tell you that I will always be proud of you," Asuna finished with a smile. "Goodbye, Oyi-sama," Naruto said with tears streaming down his face. Naruto quickly summoned a battle kitsune, and the aforementioned gave him several blows with his 5 tails, and Naruto beheaded Irizen. The end of torture. After the hologram of Asuna Uzumaki disappeared, our protagonist took out a cloth with alcohol, sat down on the couch, and began to clean his juices. With all the concentration and delicacy that he had, on the other hand, Jiraiya and Tsunade saw with some terror and admiration our colorful film of murdering and torturing the last loyal Uchiha, killing 3 old men of the high commands, and one was of the cage level, and finally killing a cage and getting out of the situation unscathed, was worthy of admiration. To watch, to know that at first he was a problem child for the village, but that with a great performance he knew how to cope with his facade of a fool, to be a psychopathic and vigilante person. It was a great leap or development for Naruto to lose his being most beloved, which was Shisui Uchiha, and having Kurama as his support and father figure was something that made him evolve as a person. Now there was only one thing missing: facing the leaders of the missing clans and trying to start a civil war so that they kill each other was something that he had planned, but where was the fun of making them a slow and painful death? What he did not know was that his mother during his youth implanted holograms of the royal family of his clan to give a torment to the Leaf Village. This was a secret that only Kurama knew. Kasina placed the holograms by tactical parts of the village to give terror and to know that her clan that was seen and kicking, but through holograms, more specific, as an artificial consciousness, for Kurama to know this was crucial, since an internal war was coming. And all because of the fuss that his son figure made in a month, and something that he has been planning for 8 years. The answers Naruto was looking for from the old monkey were about Kagami and Shisui. Kurama showed him through the results. Memories of his mother, the day of Kagami's funeral, showed that his eye sockets were empty. It was something very suspicious. One day, Kasina walked into a laboratory on the 4th floor of the hospital and saw Kagami's eyes in a conservative chemist. Now I did know that Irizen and her 2 little dogs were to blame for the attack against the leader of the Uchiha clan. He knew that getting Kagami out of the way made it easier for the old monkey to make his macabre plans. Now that Naruto knew that truth, he decided to go and spy on the meeting between the clan leaders, but first, he said a few words to Jiraiya and Tsunade. Godmother, Old Green, stay here in the office and clean everything up. Also call the 4 ambas who were here, and he tells them that I want them at the entrance of the village in 40 minutes. If they do not arrive by the set time, their families will be murdered in front of their eyes. Has it become clear to them? Naruto said in an authoritative way. If it has become clear to us, go and do what you have to do, the 2 Sannin said in sync. When Naruto retired, Tsunade said a few words to Jiraiya that left him very hurt and carrying an incredible guilt. If you watched Jiraiya because of you, and being so devoted to sensei, I couldn't take care of Naruto. Because of you, and for not telling me the day Kusina had the birth, you would have told me that to avoid that. But for being so devoted to Sarutobi, you didn't tell me anything. Jiraiya, I hope this guilt torments you all your life. Tsunade said furiously in her voice and with tears escaping from her beautiful honey-colored eyes. Jiraiya, when he heard Tsunade's words, he felt his whole body being destroyed inside. To know that he was devoted to a person who was a vile and disgusting person, and also to know that he never knew how to take care. The integrity of your student. It made him break down, trust Saruto and the day of the birth to make everything go well. But because of his stupidity and overconfidence, he lost what he cherished the most, his student Namikaze. Minato, heir of the Namikaze clan, and the only one to possess the speed element, was the trigger for Tsunade to have hatred and resentment towards him. In Iwagakure no Sato, the old Sandaime Tsukaige was in his chair, meditating to me about what happened in the village of the Leaf. Knowing that that village was on the verge of extinction, since he had nothing left about high commands, gave him the possibility of to end it with a short invasion. That was his plan, until he found out about the existence of the son of the Yellow Ray. In the first place, I wanted to kill him in order to have the channel freeway, but when he read the other part of the report, he realized that his village was in danger. And most of all the integrity of his family. The reason was that his village in the First War helped to annihilate the Uzumaki clan. And knowing that the son of his greatest enemy was the heir, he knew that his village's days were numbered with the report they gave him. I knew that this child was on a higher scale than his. Now, if his beloved village was going to suffer the consequences of an Uzumaki and his revenge towards the entire elemental continent, it was only out of greed for power that the elemental continent was going for the royal heir of this world. Ambu, I want you to double the security of the village. Very soon, we will face a threat that will send us to the Maka. And with punishment included, Onoki said to the Ambu who were standing next to him. Sir, what kind of threat is looming for me to make this decision? The Ambu asked in a neutral tone. The heir of the Uzumakis comes to end what the 5 nations did in the First War. We exterminated his clan. Add to him that he is the son of the Yellow Ray, and he is also the heir of the Namikaze. The thing is worse, it is for that reason that I want them to double the security. Onoki finished rubbing his back. But an explosion sounded that left half the village without survivors, and with a destruction that would never have a short-term repair. He's already here, check every corner of the village, and call Annie Rossi to help me in battle, Onoki already said, giving a shout to his subordinates. With Annie Rossi. Mental space. Do you know what happened, Son Goku? Rosie asked very curious. Well, the great-great-grandson of father is here to fulfill the revenge against the massacre of his clan. I wouldn't mess with him if I were you, since he carries my older brother Kyubi, and I'm telling you for your sake. Son Goku said to his Hinchuriki very seriously. The same goes for you, little N, said Gambi very seriously. Note here. N is Naruto's age. The boy said very expressionlessly. With Kurama. Ha 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 ha, what a beautiful explosion. Well, thanks to the fact that my puppy let me out, I started with revenge. Only the clone is missing. That I leave in meeting room disappear and we start with the first village. In the council chamber of the Leaf Village, all the clan leaders were preparing a plan against Naruto. To get their way to the riches of the Uzumakis. Shikaku, how is the plan for? To finish with the Uzumaki boy, remember that that boy gets more powerful every day. You know that the more power he gains, it's going to become more difficult for us to subdue him, said Hinoichi Yamanaka very seriously. I agree with Hinoichi. Shikaku, you must have a plan now to have him tamed, now that you know his provenance. It will become more difficult for us. Difficult. Remember that I together with Danzo gave the masked man the information about Kusina's childbirth. To leave the child at our mercy and take revenge on that one, Tsume and Nuzuka said with clear hatred in their voice. Ha, they think it will be that easy, they are mentally retarded, or that the hologram of Mito Uzumaki said with mockery in his voice. You should be dead, what are you doing here? Shibi said Aburame with fear in her voice. Stupid, I'm here to see what stupid kids were doing, you know, my heir is here in this room spying on you, I've disgusting little humans. Said Mito very would-be. That's right, it's I'm here and you know, members of your clans are killing each other, ha. Just to know which clan will abstain from office as the most powerful. But I'm coming to get revenge on all of you for what you did to my pathetic human parents. Now they will know what death is like, but let it come slowly, Naruto said with emotion in his voice, and seeing his aunt. Grandma Bara with a smile. Back to Iowa. With Kurama and the original Naruto. Our father and son pair were watching the landscape that a small Bijudama had caused in that rotten village surrounded by rocks. They knew that the old man with the nose that looked like a cob was looking for them. In addition to Kurama feeling the signatures of Yoka and her brother's son Goku and Kuko. She knew that one of her brother's containers was the age of her puppy. She knew that the civilians were gathered at one point. So she threw another Vijudama, which impacted and razed the village completely, leaving only ashes and like. Survivors were the Andes, the granddaughter of the old cob nose and her son. Bastard, you destroyed my village, by what right are you doing this? Noki asked very angrily. Ha, senile old man, this is only 1% of what they did to my clan. Now you will see how death will slowly claim you, he said. Naruto very serious and with a psycho smile on his face. So he summoned 3 shadow clones, who killed the Zambu through decapitation, and took Onoki's family. And tied them up against a tree to watch the show. Back in Konoha. Naruto, clone, summoned more clones and moored. To all the clan leaders without exception, and all being seen by his great-aunt Bara Mito, when he saw that Naruto took out the scrolls. He knew that he had already gone for the scrolls that the Leaf Village had stolen from his home. Now, after years, she was going to see a torture again, but this time done by her nephew Bara Nito, and she knows. I had to enjoy it like never before. So Naruto took out his katana, and beheaded all the clan leaders who were a minor clan, someone of no importance. Then his gaze was fixed on the hot one of Tsume and Nuzuka, who looked at him with deep hatred. So he gave the order to another clone to take care of her later. While watching how his friends, sexual partners, were tortured to death. There were also Hino, Shikamaru and Choji, watching with a smile the sad end of their parents. They hated their parents for making life impossible for their friend Naruto since he was a baby. Naruto Nisan, you can start, he said. And not with a smile and staring at his father. So Naruto and his clones took out 10 senbon each, and with a smile on their face. They stuck the senbon in their arms, legs and stomach to interrupt the chakra flow. Then the clone who was with Inoichi took out a pair of scissors and made a precise cut all over the face. That was on his right cheekbone, and he started giving him wind chakra recharged blows all over his body. Then he took out a glass of alcohol and began to spread it on the wounds of the cheekbone, making Hinoichi scream in despair. Then Hino took out a hammer, and with one blow to the whole knee left it split into 3 parts. So Naruto took out some tiptoes and started hammering the 5 toes of his left foot. And did not start giving reinforced blows all over his father's abdomen, making him scream in pain. After that, Naruto said these words to him. I'll see you in the other world, bastard. No one messes with my sister human and significant, Naruto said to finish chopping off her head. Note everyone except Tsume was subjected to the same torture. Back to Iwa. He was a fatigued Onoki. Since Naruto had blocked all his dust element attacks, he knew that he was low on chakra and his weapons. They didn't do anything since they allied with Naruto. That's all you got, you big-nosed old man. I really expected more from you, you have completely disappointed me. Now comes the fun part, it's time to play with you like you deserve, don't you think? Naruto said with a smile on his face. So he began to get by giving him reinforced punches of lightning chakra to give him an electric attack and make a countercurrent to his nervous system. Then he took out a poison, and with an injection, he made it access his blood and try to break down his defenses. He saw a branch of a tree and stuck it in the old man's anus and drew a cry of pain. Naruto has already bored me by beheading him in front of his family. Back in the Leaf Village. In the end, Naruto beheaded Tsume and incinerated the entire council chamber. After having finished his assignment in the village of the Leaf, our protagonist in the company of Shikamaru, Hino and Chuji, went to the local office to inform his godparents about the departure from the village and see the memories of the Ambus and know what orders they had for the future. If it would be something Inoric to review the memories of a few simple pawns, but as they were with the Okage all the time, they should know something about the plans the old monkey wanted to put into action. In addition, there was a very important secret in Naruto's life. Since he was 7 years old, he found out that Hino was his blood sister. He found out thanks to his sensor skill. Since their chakras and auras were very similar. As time passed, I saw how she was mistreated and, in some cases, raped on the internet. Hinoichi Elano, to satisfy his banal pleasures, but thanks to his previous act in the council chamber, quenched his thirst for revenge against Hinoichi, and thus regained the honor of his inmount. On the other hand, Shikamaru and Choji had a grudge against their parents, since they were the pioneers of spreading the rumor of Naruto, and in addition to forcing them from an early age to be in brothels, to have relations with the workers who resided there, but by a miracle, they never managed to contract such a disease. Their lives were not free, but were full of obligations that a child should not do, just like their mothers went to bed in the middle home, and with the presence of them with other members of their clan, and besides that they had children with them. In short, they were a disgrace to everyone. Such was the rotten village among the leaves, a village full of prostitution, vain pleasures, used precisely on children, and infidelity at its best. In Kumogakure no Sato, there were the retired Sandame Reikikage, Killer Bee, the Yuki Bearer, the eight-tailed bull octopus, and finally, the Yondame Reikikage AI, who was the son of the Sandame, concentrated on the paperwork and the things that had happened in Iwa a few hours ago. Hey B, you should take more care of yourself. You know that our village during the Second War helped in the annihilation of the Uzumaki clan. And as you just found out, the herder of the clan is coming for the Biju, and to destroy the village to avenge his clan. To bring the honor that his deceased family lost because of us. He said they're very serious, seeing his brother B. I'll have it, brother. Besides, who is he? I don't think it's that powerful, B said with her attempt at rhyme. He is the son of the Yellow Ray, he is the heir of the Uzumaki clan. Thanks to our spies in Konoha, we found out that the killer to the third cage and his entire cabinet. Besides that, before murdering them in the torture, I also already placed a warning that if they see him they have to flee. That child is very dangerous, and to top it off, he is the grandson of the first Uzumaki that existed. That's why I tell you that if it's time to fight, it's time to do it in a group, he said too very seriously. Son, I think you're right, but I'm already too old to fight, as you describe. You make that boy remind me of Yamamoto Uzumaki, the slightly serious Sandame said. Yamamoto? He asked, a very curious start of the flashback scene. If when I assumed the position of Reikikage, a mission came out which consisted of making a peace treaty with the land of hot springs. Males, I didn't go with anyone, I left only because I assumed there would be no action at all. When I was 15 kilometers away from arriving, I met a red-haired guy who was looking at me very coldly. I came to a quick conclusion that he was an Uzumaki and was thirsting for revenge for what had happened to him with his clan. With great speed of reaction, I dodged a slash that went straight to my jugular. When I assumed that his attack was over, I felt that he sent me a slash from his katana, with water chakra included. I knew I couldn't dodge cleanly, so I activated my armor and barely managed to dodge the chopping block. Then he began to make only 4 hand seals, and from them, he took a breath and sent me a gust of wind to try to get away and try to lower my guard. When he felt it was time to attack me again, to dodge a kick that was going with physical strength to about 30%, and had opened a crater in the entire half of the forest, with retro amazement. I proceeded a little and took out some kune and threw myself at him to make a comparison of strength. When the time for the crash came, we made a big burst and stayed static, but in my case, with a pain in my left arm. Then I pulled out 2 long-edged kune and started a kenjutsu battle with him to try again, breaking his defense and just maybe hurt him. We lasted for 20 minutes, and I already had accumulated tiredness and he was fresh. After that, throw a lightning jutsu to counteract your physical state and give a current to your nervous system. But he with a great speed dodged the jutsu from me and forced me to a taijutsu battle. When I thought I had it, Yamamoto put his katana in my jukebox and told me, "You have been a good opponent to Kumogakure third Reikage, despite your status as a kage. You proved to me that you are worthy of the position. You know I had planned to kill you in this place, but I did not decide to do it. Since you have fought with honor and heart, I Yamamoto Uzumaki name you as a good rival. That's it for this old man," Yamamoto said with a smile. Old, but if you look about 25 years old, he said too very surprised. My clan is long-lived. It may look like I'm 25, but I'm actually 75 years old, Don't be surprised, Yamamoto said with a smile. End of the flashback scene. See father, and after his meeting, did you know anything about him? He asked. They're very curious. No, my son, after our meeting, I didn't hear anything more about him, old Sendai said. Very serious Reikage. But suddenly an explosion sounded. When they came out of the Reikage tower, they saw that half of the village was shattered, and they saw the Kyuubi in its maximum splendor. What a beautiful landscape, or not, Kurama Otozen? Naruto said with a grim smile. Yes, puppy, it's quite a work of art, Kurama said with his trademark smile. When the three most powerful shinobi of Kumo saw that the son of the yellow ray did this damage next to his Biju, they trembled slightly. But the old Sandaime Reikage saw in the reflected boy Yamamoto, and made a gesture to his son that, I won't fight him. But so the threw himself against Naruto with his Raiten, I don't cry, and to his maximum splendor. And to be able to give a blow to the aforementioned, but with great ease I dodge him, and command with one hand to the ground. And make him a spectacular fall, but two. He got up and tried with his maximum speed to strike a blow, but it was a failed attempt. Before he made the second phase of the Raiten, he did not cry and fell to the ground with a pool of his own blood. Living with a lost look at our protagonist. Well, you have disappointed me. I thought you were stronger, but from what I just witnessed, you are weak. I bet your father, the Sandaime with your age, if he had given me a light. Worthy, but your Yondaime Reikage has been a disappointment, Naruto said, taking one last look at the dying Yondaime Reikage. When the Sandaime saw his son die, he felt a lot of pain, and from that pain caused, he died of a heart attack. Because he could not stand this type of events. And Naruto saw this and sealed it on a roll to give him honors. For the only human to face a Bijulu, and all under the watchful eye of Killer Bee. Then he turned to see Killer Bee, and through a sequence of stamps, he took out his Bijulu and left him to die on the floor. But with the other Hinshiriki, she agreed to go with him, as the village was mistreating her, and she couldn't take it anymore. This kind of emotions. So Kurama threw a Vijudama, and finished with all Kumo, and at the end of this scene, our protagonist saw this with a smile. After finishing with the Cloud Village, his clone who was in the Leaf Village was waiting for the Ambus to interrogate them. And maybe give them a second one. Opportunity if they were not involved with the old monkey's future plans. And to know if they were psychologically wrong because of the old monkey's treatment of them. The last thing she thought about it since her second caretaker Ambu was a cat mask with a purple hair. She was tortured through genjutsu courtesy of the old monkey. The last he heard from her was that the old monkey murdered her for protecting him from his plans. That was another reason why our protagonist wanted to see this village on fire. He found out during his month of training about the event of the Mbuneko. That's how the 5 minutes that Naruto had given to the Ambus passed. And in a sunsin, the four appeared kneeling in front of Naruto and with their heads resting on the cold ground. Tell me, since when did you enter the headquarters of the And? The Pelabicolor asked in a too thick voice. We entered 2 years ago, the three Ambus said in sync. And with a stutter in his voice. What were the first orders that the stupid old man from Sarutobi gave them? Naruto asked staring at the Andus. It was to make an investigation of the deceased Captain Neko and tell the instructors of the academy that they will sabotage his classes to make him weak. Docile, one of the Zumbu said with a stutter and fear in his voice. And you guys didn't have any other tasks besides the ones set? Naruto asked very seriously. Yes, we had one, which consisted of setting the Uzumaki complex on fire. The Okage wanted that on fire. So that you would not access your inheritance and never. He knew about his kinship with Yonda and Mei-sama, said Ambu himself very afraid. Ah, I see, so those were the useless old man's orders. Finally, I want to know if you guys tried to attack me at night during your Ambu watch, Naruto questioned with his sword drawn. We never tried that. I was trained by his only protector. To summarize, I was trained by Yashi Yuga himself, to be more exact. I am Kiro Yuga, the eldest son of Izashi Yuga, and the older brother of his friend Neji. I mistreated, since Mr. Yashi told me the truth of his provenance, Kiro said very seriously. And making a final bow to Naruto. And you too, tell me your names, Naruto demanded, looking at the other two Ambu. Well, my name is Aiko Namikaze. I'm your cousin Naruto-sama. I was one of his protectors when you were little, after Shisui-sama died, the Ambu Neko, and me. We took over Ambu, and made a special squad to protect him. Aiko said to finally get up, and give our favorite Pelabicolor a hug. I understand, and finally you, girl, Naruto said, looking at the younger Ambu. I am Natsumi Fujimoto. I am one of the survivors of my clan. The aforementioned one was annihilated by the stupid of Sarutobi during the Third War and a few years ago. Thanks to the sacrifice of my parents, I managed to survive, and I settled here in this rotten village, and a few years later, the Ambunic recruited me to his special squad to protect you. Naruto-sama, said Natsumi, letting out a few light tears as he remembered his beloved captain, the Ambu Neko again. Well, the three of you will be with me. You will be my personal guards in Yuzu. Do it for my adopted older brother Shisui. And for Neko-chan, just do it to give them the honor they deserve, Naruto said in speech mode. Touching the heads of the three Ambus under the watchful gaze of her little sister Ino and the rest of her cabinet. So they left the Leaf Village, but before they started walking, Naruto summoned a Kitsuna, and he made the reverse invocation to take them to Nami no Kuni. On the other hand, with the original Naruto and Kurama were taking a walk to the land of water to finish off Kirigakure and recover Kurama's other two brothers who were against their will in that disgusting village. At the same time, Kurama was wearing a proud smile when he knew that his puppy was getting much stronger. To be able to wipe out all the nations and finally seek the peace that the shinobi world would have after millennia. In Naminokuni, in a ball of smoke, Naruto-clan and his cabinet appeared at the entrance of the village. Then, Naruto continued walking through the village where all the inhabitants were giving him a bow. And the children were giving him hugs which were not there. Our protagonist corresponded with a smile. His whole cabinet saw this with a smile, to know that Naruto finally had what he always dreamed of. So they continued for a few minutes until they saw a three-story house, which belonged to the old drunk, or as he is usually known, Tazuna, the daimyo of the country of waves. So Naruto knocked on the door, and a brown blur came out, hugging the clone a little tightly. And this blur was neither more nor less than Anab. She was worried about her beloved by not knowing almost about him, so she left the hug and leaned on his neck and gave him a passionate kiss with a view of everyone present. When Anab broke the kiss and saw that everyone observed his moment with his beloved to escape from so many questions, what he did was faint. So Naruto gave a warm hug to Tazuna and her family as a greeting gesture. Then he picked up Anab and took her to the sofa and put her to bed, and he sat down in the form of meditation to be able to send the information to the original. Hey, and I don't want to know the truth of your provenance, Hiraya questioned with a curious look. Well, actually I'm Ino Namikaze Uzumaki. I'm Naruto Ken Uzumaki's little sister. At the age of 2, I was kidnapped by the third cage. That he took me against my will to the disgusting Yamanakas and take me away from my older brother. For many years, the Yamanaka abused me by doing banal acts and sent me to brothels in the company of Shikamaru and Choji to please the workers who lived there. It was like that from the age of 8 until I got out from the academy. Then I met up with my brother again in the exams, Hino finished with a smile. Do you have the other half of Kurama-sama? Shikamaru asked very seriously. No, I don't have it since Naruto Onasama has full Kurama, Hino said, staring at his brother's clone. After Ino finished telling everything that happened during his childhood, the rest of the people who accompanied him were shocked to learn the truth. For Jiraiya and Tsunade, it was another nail, since they never did anything to help the twins. Every story or event about the boys was a stake in his heart. On the other hand, when the remaining nations found out about the destruction of the village of the Leaf and Cloud respectively, they doubled their security and began to make patrols with a high degree of security to know who was the cause of this. Moreover, when they found out that the culprit was the prince of the Uzumakis himself, they were afraid for their lives, since their village helped in that particular case. In Kirigakure not Sato, the goddess Mizukage was in her office, struggling with her paperwork with all the little patience she had. She threw the desk out of the Mizukage tower with all the strength she possessed. Thanks to his assistant, watching this with a drop of sweat from the recent action of his superior. Unbeknownst to him, the hours of his village's existence were numbered. And the reason was because Prince Uzumaki was on his way to his village with intentions of committing genocide and perhaps showing his might. At first, when he thought about the prince, he thought he was a noble with no shinobi abilities. She, with her thoughts of absolute superiority, condemned her own death by not knowing who Prince Uzumaki really was. With original Naruto and Kurama, the father and son duo were near the fog village with anything but good intentions. Since they were in that nation, in order to destroy it and make a genocide, in order to restore the honor and fear that the Uzumaki clan made during its existence. Well, Otozen, would you like to start the party in the land of water? Naruto asked with a trademark Uzumaki smile. The truth, Mio said, is yes, but how do you want me to start this feast in this disgusting country? Kurama said with a slutty smile. Actually, we could start with a mini-sized Bijudama. After that we will do the biggest genocide that has been seen in the elemental nations. Naruto said with a marked smile on their faces. Thus Kurama launched a small Bijudama that destroyed 20 villages near the village of the mist without leaving any survivors. After that, Naruto released a wave of wind and began to wipe out 10 other villages, leaving no survivors. So he took out his sword made in the Mount of the Kitsunes and began to send cuts left and right, where he dismembered all kinds of existing living beings, whether greedy women and men with lust for power. He put the children to sleep and erased their memories with their current relatives, and made him their father and Anab their mother. For 15 minutes it went on with this massacre, and towards the same process with the children. Without knowing it, she had fulfilled Anab's greatest dream, which was to have many children or children. Note the age of the children does not exceed 3 years. After that, he climbed back on his adoptive father's head, and they continued on their way to the village of the mist to finish the work, and be able to go to rest a little at their passing home in Nami no Kundi. Mizukage-sama, all the peoples of the nation have been eradicated, said a very serious Jounin, and staring at his superior. What do you say? Mei asked, very surprised. Well, Prince Uzumaki has eradicated the entire nation. Besides, a few hours ago, he destroyed the northern wall that protects the village. Besides, he is the Hinchiriki of Kyubi, said the very serious Jounin. Fuck. I want all available forces surrounding the village. Defend the village with your life, Mei said very hysterically. Mei-sama, I'm sorry to tell you that Prince Uzumaki has raised the entire wall. Besides, he brings Zabuza-sama's Kyubikibicho. Besides, I found out that before Zabuza-sama died, he told the prince to be the next bearer of the sword, said Ao very seriously. Well, we only have Choju left. With a legendary sword, we must also protect him so that the prince does not take the sword. Since the 7 legendary swords belong to the Uzumakas, Mei said with much concern. On the other hand, in the village of the sand, the council of the aforementioned already counted its days as a hidden village to the knowledge. To see what happened in the village of the leaf, besides that he gladly spared the lives of the 3 children of his late Yondaime Kazakage. Kiyosama, what should we do? A Jounin from the village asked. Nothing, we will do nothing, we will just wait for our fate, the old materialist said. But why do I spare the lives of Yondaime-sama's children? The Jounin asked again with great curiosity. Just because Kagura-sama was Namikaze Minato's younger sister, that's the only reason I spare their lives. The very serious little old lady said again. The search for the temple of the royal family of the Uzumaki. After the old puppeteer told the councillors about the true provenance of the children of her late 4th Kazekage. They were actually cousins of Naruto Uzumaki. They understood at first why Uzumaki Naruto had spared their lives, as they had never treated Gaara as a weapon, since he was the previous one. Advice led by Sabaku no Rasa himself, the one who did things wrong with his youngest son. On the other hand, in the almost empty Sabaku mansion, the 3 brothers were chatting about how Uzumaki Naruto had spared their lives. Also, when Kankuro unintentionally hit the table, a slightly worn letter came out of it, which was addressed to them. Very carefully, Kankuro picked up the letter, which contained a very brief writing on the envelope, which said, Letter addressed to my beloved children Kankuro Tamari, and my most precious treasure, my beloved baby Gahara. When he read the scripture, Gaara opened his eyes to realize that his mother always loved him, and did not hate him as his father had told him. So Mari snatched the letter from Kankuro, and with some nervousness she opened the letter, which contained a bit big paper, and which contained these words. From Karura Namikaze. For my 3 treasures, Kankuro Tamari and Gahara. If you are reading this letter, it means that I am dead, and I have left you in this cruel world. In this letter is everything that I hide from you. In the first case, and the most important thing, is that I am the sister of the deceased 4th Hokage. Also, you have 2 cousins, which are Inu Uzumaki and Naruto Uzumaki. Another thing I kept from them was about my Hinchiriki status. His dad found out that I was a beast catcher with a tail, and he treated me to Vista as the ultimate weapon. But that never happened. My children, I just want to tell you that I will love you forever. He says goodbye. Karura Namikaze. After Tamari finished reading the letter, everyone had different reactions from Tamari. She was in a trance and didn't know what to do. Kankuro was very surprised to learn that he was the cousin of the psychopathic boy who almost killed him, and on the other hand, Gaara formed a smile. Knowing that their cargo companion was their relative, the three brothers quickly left the Sabaku mansion with their things, and also with the mansion included. As they were approaching the exit of the village, Grandma Chilo intercepted them and said, "Where do you think you three are going?" The old lady asked with a lot of seriousness in her voice. "Chilo-sama, we are leaving the village since we are going in search of our cousin Naruto. That's why we are leaving the old village." Chilo said Tamari very seriously. "Or I see, if that's your decision you can leave, but remember that we will always welcome you with arms open," the little old lady said with a motherly smile. "Thank you very much, Kiyo-sama. Just keep in mind that we will continue to take care of the village," Kankuro said very seriously. This is how the three brothers set off towards the land of the waves so that they could be with their cousin and tell him that he was no longer going to be alone. On the other hand, original Naruto and Kurama were looking for an island a little close to the village of the mist, where there was supposedly a temple of the Uzumaki clan, where there were some scrolls that had been left by Naruto's deceased grandfather. When they reached the shore, Kurama went into chibi mode and climbed on the head of Naruto and began with his advanced sense of smell to sniff around for presences. Then, in a ball of smoke, the zombio better known as Isobu came out on the right shoulder and said to Naruto, "Hey Naruto, do my coral jutsu to head towards the island and see what your grandfather left for your mother and for you," said the Biju. Three Tails very serious. So Naruto made the corresponding hand seals, and from there an average-sized coral came out, and from there Naruto climbed up, and with a wind jutsu, and propelled himself towards the center of the sea to reach the island. On the other hand, in Nami no Kuni, after Ino spoke, everyone was silent. "And no, we know what we went through, but today we are fine with our family. Now let's not remember the past anymore and live in the present," Shikamaru said very seriously. "To remove this tension, we must prepare to start the journey to Yuzu, as Naruto told us through Yuzu, a letter that is on the island that was owned by his grandfather, to find more secrets of the clan," Hiraya said very seriously. When Naruto finished his journey to the island, he saw that this terrain had defense based on Fuinjutsu. At first glance, a four-cornered barrier was visible, but in reality, it was two shields of Fuinjutsu combined with elementary ninjutsu. If anyone approached, he would drop an elemental ninjutsu of rank that was boosted to BSS. These were the measures that Nazumaki thus took to protect the treasure that he had for his beloved family. So Naruto bit his finger and dropped a few drops of blood, and the effect was that the barrier disappeared, but he also realized that an entity was following him and that it was hidden under the earth. So he began to make a short movement of hand poses and put them against the floor, doing a mini shake-up to get him out of there. When the tidal wave ended, he saw a black and white entity. Black that looked like a plant. He could also observe that he was wearing a cape with red clouds, and as he made the observation deeper, he realized that Kurama was talking to him, and he says, "Puppy, he was one of the causes of the fall of your clan. He is Zetsu, he is my bastard uncle. He was created by the evil part of my grandfather. The Kagaya you have too disintegrated with Fuinjutsu," Kurama said very seriously. "I agree with what Kurama says, finish it quickly, take everything that is here, and you leave with the rest for Yuzu. And finish with the masked Akatsuki to finally bring the peace that father ever wished for Naruto," Isobu exclaimed very seriously. "Seriousness. Cool, Loyari Otosama, and Uncle Isabit," Naruto said very seriously. While Naruto was talking to them, thanks to his sensor ability, he realized that the entity tried to attack him. But before Zetsu's attack hit our protagonist, the aforementioned one took out a katana and blocked the attack very easily. Then, without the entity called Zetsu noticing, Naruto sent one of his chains with elemental chakra of water and lightning underground, and electrocuted the entity and began to take out his shit and began to embed them in the body more strange one he had ever seen in his life. At the same time, Zetsu began to see death in his eyes for the first time. While Zetsu was relieving himself due to fear, Naruto continued with his task. While the chains and the Kaguns did the work of having him, Naruto summoned a shadow clone and ordered him to make a disintegrating seal with all the speed in the world. For a moment, Zetsu saw that Naruto's hair turned completely red, and he saw the silhouette of Asuna Uzumaki at its maximum splendor, even more with that his fear intensified to double Zetsu himself remembers the words he said to him. Asina Uzumaki in their last meeting. Flashback scene. Asina was walking through her beloved village very calmly in the company of her beloved granddaughter, Kasina, to start her training. A few minutes later, they arrived at the royal family's training camp. As Asina started teaching him the basics of how to get the shits out and how to unblock his chakra. While Kasina was doing her training, Asina moved a little away from her little girl's location and said, "Get out of there, talking plant, I felt you from the center of the village," Asina said in a commanding voice. "Oh, so you found me out. What I'm coming to say is that I'll see you at the grave," Zetsu said very confidently. "Aha, I know what you're planning. You put the current cages in a genjutsu with the help of Yukiya Madara to annihilate us, right? You know the one you won't see us, it will be you. Soon the heir of our clan will take revenge for what they did, but I also know that the cages before their control already had ideas of attacking us in order to annihilate us and take the balance off him. This world ended very seriously. I want to know what you're going to do." He questioned Zetsu very challenging. What any clan would do to maintain its honor, he told Sina very seriously. "See you," Zetsu said to finally leave below ground. End of the flashback scene. When Zetsu ended his memory, he felt that life was slipping away from him. A few seconds before, the Naruto clone had finished the seal and handed it to the original Naruto. And he put it on Zetsu's chest to finally disintegrate it. While with the masked man, he was waiting Zetsu's report, but he realized that it was too late, and all he thought was that Zetsu was out there playing a slacker, eating whatever to deliver the report to him later. But the masked man was very deluded to think that, since I never imagined what really happened to him. Obito stayed waiting for Zetsu to give him his report of his enemy, who damaged his plans according to him. But the latter never arrived. 3 hours had passed since Zetsu had left, and the boy Frion Sato with airs of creating chaos by someone he did not love. He was filled with patience, and left there to start his final attack, and so complied. His plans. "You're done with that chattering plant. The truth is he had enough of us with his presence," the Vihulu said in sync. And with an irrepressible emotion. "Yes, guys, I was able to finish with Zetsu, and with this we prevented the job from resurfacing again. Besides, I have to get in touch with Gamakichi to give me the information about Tobi and his abilities and prepare for the final battle," Naruto said in a calculating tone. "Okay, Naruto/puppy," the two Vihulu said in sync, to finally take a new nap. So 3 more months passed where Naruto was still looking for civilians, mercenaries and renegades to join Utsu, thanks to the Joker taught him to identify if the person is good or bad. There were not many inconveniences to eliminate people who were going with double intention. In addition, Enabi continued to take care of the children and taught them to read and write with the help of Hiraya and Tsunade. The children were going with Shikamaru, Choji, Yashi and Hiraya to learn the basics about survival and personal hygiene. It was easier for the girls since most of them were 5 years old, and their mothers had taught them the basics, and now Enabi, Tsunade and No taught them history and geography to enrich the previous knowledge they already obtained with his former family. Note Naruto, I delete the family memories, but I only leave the memories where the mothers taught them the basics. On the other hand, Tobi was desperate looking for Kabuto to help him with Edo Tense, and so finally, his magnificent and absurd plan to end up with a person who far surpassed him. As he continued his search, he realized that the entire nation where the village of Sound resided was completely eradicated. Thinking that it was just a facade, he went to the main lair of the deceased Sannin to be able to locate the Mebo of the aforementioned, but unfortunately only found a lair with many dismembered bodies, and some hung without their grace parts. He quickly headed towards the main office, but found only one letter that was addressed towards the deceased Sandame. Firm Orochimaru Evi. For Irizen Sarutobi. Hello dear sensei, I am writing this letter to tell you that the plan to kill the Yondaime and his wife turned out perfect. Luckily, I contacted someone to do the dirty work, and we were unharmed from that problem. But I didn't count on the child still being alive. I think sensei that you should not make a mistake with that child. When I saw him in the forest, I felt that he was holding back. You left him as you should not. The child is a danger, but unfortunately you never realized that. It was very easy for Hiraya and Tsunade to drive them away and also kidnap the twin, and make her pass as the heiress of one of the village clans. I think the plan was a fiasco. If the letter did not reach your hands, It means that everything failed, and we are 3 meters underground, burning in the flames of hell. P.S. I love you very much, Father. After Obito read the letter, he was shocked because with those written words on that piece of paper, he realized that the Hokage did use sacrifices. But he did not know that his beloved was one of them, to send him into complete darkness and blame someone who was only a pawn. Obito took the katana that was there, put it around his neck, and beheaded himself, thinking that he had found himself in paradise. He would find her to be again the person she was, and the one who was loved by her sensei and her adoptive mother. Forgive me, Naruto, for making a life a fiasco and killing the people who saw me as a son. Obito thought before his head is separated from his body. But Naruto felt that an energy signature was fading away quickly, and thanks to his anger and sin arrived, and saw that the masked man had committed suicide. He took the paper and read in detail, and understood the reasons why he made this drastic decision. This poor man was just another pawn of Irizen Sarutobi and his band of greedy people. So he returned home, and saw that 12 children hugged him, and threw him to the floor, all saying in sync, "Welcome home." End of the story. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next theories. The link of the creator of the story will be in the description. That said, see you in the next theory. Bye.